Hello, everybody. Here we are again. Some more Winter Cup. The and last of the year, I guess. Uh, we got our finals here. Nebula and Martini. They have just about started. Hopefully, uh, and to go through them with me, we got ourselves the one of the best caster teams of all time. We got Warning Track. Hello,
Hello, thank you for having me.
and Slappy.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back. The slow caster team, although we're gonna go a little quicker today, I think.
We'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
I just
see.
say
Yeah,
if they're watching replays every game, we might have a lot of
yeah.
time.
Yes, it could be a long one. We do have every venue -2, so that's a lot of games potentially. And of course, if that ends in a tie, we also get infinite balcony
Which has
potentially.
only happened once. The
Oh,
famous Opie Urand final, I think,
okay.
was the only time that happened.
Nice. Oh yeah, and I've got some sort of information screen here. Let me see if I can find it. Up there it is.
That definitely has a lot of information.
Yes.
Yeah. For those who, I'm not sure if this is up on here or not, but you can
It
kind of
is
see
not.
there. Look at that. They played each other in the group stages. So you have that right. The two finalists emerged from the same group, the group of death. I think there was no argument this year about which group was the group of death, as evidenced by the fact that Opie Wrights himself came in third in this group. They emerged from the same group, Nebula getting the better of Martini there by the scantest of margins, 7-5. Then after a nail biter against Pofke, they went a combined 18-6 against Lev and C-Rams, who was one of the breakout players of this tournament. Martini's made similarly quick work of their recent opponents, including that statement 9-5 victory over two-time SMC champion Minioric, which probably busted a lot of brackets, I would say, Slappy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so there's always been this hope around. Like a couple years ago, people were just always rooting for Martini going up, and then Martini started shedding their underdog status little by little because it was always fun to root for someone who was discovering so much tech but wasn't as polished yet. And now he is caught up on the polish, and he's incredibly devastating sniper, as you can see on the screen with the sniper win rates.
Yeah, Nebula agrees with you. Told me before the match, wanted to play Martini maybe the least out of all the people on the other side of the bracket there, and you're probably about to find out why. All that said, though, probably one of the bigger gaps between reputation and results. This is Martini's first major cup or, let's say major event final of any kind, and therefore it would obviously be, if they win, their first major title. Some victories in Penguin Pool, right? Some of these little kind of offshoot things. Uh, but out of the big cups and the SMLs and the SCLs, first final for Martini. Nebula, on the other hand, has been to several and actually has a little bit of chance to make history themselves. Could become the first ever three-time cup winner if they pull this out today. So a lot at stake for both players.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to talk about venues real quick before we start jumping into it?
Do you
I
wanna
think we do.
Yeah. Do you wanna also look at the draft at the same time or
Oh yeah, no, that's the draft is what I'll be doing for
okay.
venues. Okay, so we got so importantly here, there's a little bit more strategy than normal for the draft at the finals. Often the draft of a Winter Cup finals was not very meticulous because you could just ban the thing you don't want, and then everything else can get played in was like what order you play it in. Not that interesting. But what's important here is that whenever you pick a setup on any particular map, it completely bans the other setups that were previously in the Winter Cup. So we'll note a couple of early picks in here of Courtyard getting picked early. And I think that is more having to do with the fact that Martini did not want to play any three of seven Courtyard. Oh, course, and the bans, by the way. Nebula banning Balcony, I'm pretty sure that's consistent with Nebula. And Martini banning Aquarium, probably a good ban in there just because there's a lot of pocket tech and you can prep something really special in Aquarium. Just get that out of the way. Sink some of that prep time into nothing. And then early other picks we had were Library, which would eliminate the NE4 of 8 library. We have Redwoods, and I think that's just the normal, yeah, just normal A4 of 8 Redwoods. Pub, interestingly, getting the A4 of 7 treatment. I expect a Sniper Party on that one. Modern getting the A4, or I don't know if it would actually had an alternate one. Terrace A3 of 5, so a lower. Terrace is a little bit of a different layout than the normal. But I think out of all the surprising ones we have high rise A3 of 8 and veranda A4 of 8 possibly at the bottom. I really, really want to get to veranda any 4 of 8. I still think it'll be relatively sniper favored, but I would just love to see that at a high level.
Yeah, it could be a lot of fun with those slight variants. Sometimes one mission difference here or there can completely transform a venue and the results. And one of the reasons we're hoping for that is because, as some have already alluded to in the community, and which we will mention again here, both snipers with roughly a 90% win rate in this tournament coming into it, which has become the standard if you want to win a cup in modern day competitive SpyParty. So snipers, we expect to be dominant, maybe a little less so with that mission shaved off, but we will see. Gentlemen, are you both ready to get into this?
Yep, I am ready.
All right, looks like we're going to start on Courtyard. These two meeting in the finals of the 6th annual Winter Cup. Nebula has not lost. Martini has not lost to anyone but Nebula. We are just about ready to go. And it's looking like, oh, sure, why not? It's Smallman. Okay, we good?
Yeah, let's get into it.
3, 2, 1, playing it.
All right, so we are immediate. Actually, I think we're gonna get away with that unless there was something about the lag on that one. I think we're gonna get away with that immediate flirt and bail, which could be huge if part of Martini's setup on this is flirt pairing.
Well, so what's very interesting here is that Nebula kind of has mentioned that before the match, they felt they weren't being aggressive enough with their early game flirting, and it was kind of putting them behind later in the game, and they wanted to switch it up a little bit here in the finals, but specifically wants to do hardtails to match party movement. Martini famous for using pathing to narrow the party down and start scoping out for etiquette. How do you combat something like that? Well, you do things while there's a lot of pathing to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what's funny is, as you mentioned that, most people think about trying to do stuff while Trey is going back up, while Ambassador's passing by people. It'd be interesting if you could actually scope out between these two pathing snipers. Oh, there's a pathing opportunity coming up. They're going to want to take that light. Fake banana bread comes off. That's just a rote fake banana bread. It's just everybody pretty much in CC, although we get one low light.
And not a whole lot happening here. The seduction is done early, though. So far, whether or not it's a good game plan or not, Nebula's game plan is going off the way they intended.
Yeah, and they are... Okay, so we are setting up for now the real before going into statues. On Smallman, I don't think we're going to try to do any bug shenanigans. We are just doing a normal interrupt here. Oh, Double Agent leaves, though, and Nebula is shaking their camera because I think that they wanted to hit some pace with that.
Yeah, you could have contacted, maybe into a bug, then you go into inspects. There's a lot of ways to end this game with about 90 seconds left, but a lot of them just left with that Double Agent, and there's the bug, and it does not take, and we're shot anyway. I don't know what the plan was, but as soon as that Double Agent left, it seems like things just fell apart.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that we tried to do that. We must have just thought that there was something going else on the other side of the venue, or Martini sold the first leave over to the left, but that's going to be a relatively straightforward win for Martini.
Yeah, very straightforward, and you expect it maybe on Courtyard, but you'd like to put them to a slightly more difficult test than that. It's not just a win, it's an easy win, and we talk about the stamina, the mental stamina of this game, especially in longer final sets. And, a loss is a loss, but an easy loss for a sniper where they don't have to think very hard or stress out too much about their decision, that can pay dividends later in the match. And later in the match is exactly where we're headed. Martini now on the Spy, playing General on Courtyard in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
And we are also looking for an early flirt here. We are not going to get it. Actually, so it's funny because you actually want to... The problem with Courtyard is because it's one of the maps that you can get paired pretty early, you actually kind of have to remember who you end up next to. So like Martini actually has to notice that they're next to Sari here at the beginning and not go next to Sari again. It's actually kind of bad not to get near your seduction target because it just puts out someone else there.
Yeah, you don't want to get flirt paired with someone. A shot for flirt pairing when it's not even your seduction target you were flirting with. We are going to make our way next to our actual seduction target. Is the gentleman with the cane right here. See how many seconds we wait. Is it the standard Spy 7 that people like to talk about? Yeah, pretty much almost exactly.
Oh, and just as something that's going to be hitting us up in general, so sometimes when we have such a famously style-oriented sniper like Martini, it's going to be something about like, oh, it's going to be pathing versus camping. It's going to be camping versus behavioralism. These are both snipers that are very familiar with pathing, and I'm very interested to see the mind games that are going to go on with that. I expect them to both get mutually lower amounts of lowlights than they would in any other circumstance because they both know so much about pathing in this game.
That's certainly a fine point. For Nebula's point, actually, if there is a game plan, if it can be summed up in one word, it is patience. Making Martini finish, definitely a slower spy. And it kind of makes sense, right? People tend to spy in a way that reflects the way they snipe, whether they mean to or not. And if you are someone who catches lots of little details as sniper, maybe you want to leave fewer details out there as spy, and you tend to lean into the slow play. And what do you know? That seems to be what's happening here. And it's going to be a fake banana bread, but it's going to be a red test, and there's no one else in there with us. And I talked about easy spot sniper wins early on, and Martini just gave one right back.
Indeed. Yeah, obviously a bummer there. We do have a reset going on here, so we need to jump out of this one and jump into the next one. So let's get that done. Oh, they're waiting for us, I guess.
Oh, that's very nice of them.
Okay, so while we're figuring that out, yeah, like you're saying, two relatively straightforward shots from both sides. The red test is a little bit more worrying because the bug was not necessarily just like nerves. It was just like, oh, didn't quite line up the way that we wanted to. Not getting it was not great, and then Martinez rotation was on top of it. It just again very easy shot for them. Oh, there they are. We can get back in the match.
Yeah, that's one of the toughest thing for casters is to sort of interpret what we see because sometimes it's nerves. There's certainly plenty of reasons to think that nerves might play a role. I mentioned this is Martini's first ever final in a major, so that could be it. It's also the very beginning of said final. On the other hand, it could just be that action test sliver was right next to the red bar, and they just missed it. Sometimes it's just random noise, and there's no narrative there, and it's hard to know the difference, certainly. This is, however, the furthest Martini's ever made it in a cup tournament, as I said. In the 2022 Summer Cup, they lost in the semifinals to Nebula. So there is a lot going on here between these two.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It's even though we are expecting a lot of sniper wins in this, given the fact that I believe the opening selection showed us at like 90%, 89% sniper win rates across the two of them. I don't think we would still expect them to be kind of this easy. But nerves can cut both ways. So let's say there is some nerves showing here. That means they're probably a little bit nervous on the sniper as well.
Very true. Certainly. I will say that there can be a dichotomy for some players. Some players find one a lot more stressful than the other. Personally, I always found them almost equally stressful, as I would imagine you did too. But they are both, exceptional snipers, and when they're on their game, they certainly don't need coughs and super visible bugs in order to take the shot. It's just what they've gotten so far. But Nebula is battle tested, to say the least. Has not lost a final. Has won 2 cups already, as I mentioned. One of only 3 players, by the way, to win the Summer and Winter Cups at one point or another, along with Kaylee and Rov. But neither of those two have done it a third time. So Nebula battle tested, Martini brand new. Some would say fresh, maybe wants it more, hungrier. There's any kind of narrative you want to write, depending on the outcome.
Yeah, and by the way, we're just waiting for they've reset the games, and then we're waiting for the delay on here. So we'll be getting into the next match, or sorry, the next venue that's going to be Redwoods. But also, what's interesting is that so we just came off of SMC, the SMC circuit. That was the last major tournament before this one. That's kind of the end cap, most prestigious tournament that we've got. And I believe neither player was in those. Martini might have been, but I think very directly Nebula was not in those. And so what's nice to see in here is different kind of players getting to the finals here. So again, very strong players. Nebula, I would say probably like in most people's top 3, if not top 2, along with Rov, coming in here and being able to get into the finals. It's just nice. I like it when we don't just see one player just kind of running away with everything, even though the Kaylee dominance era was fun, that we're having a bit of a mix for the top here.
Yeah, we have a lot of rock, paper, scissors going on these days. You have 4 or 5 people who are consistently around the top, but some of them play one better than another, and on any given day, any of them can win. But to your point, if I don't miss my guess, I think neither of these players was even competing in last year's Winter Cup. The order of tournaments and some of the SMC stuff, which can be exhausting and high stress because there's a lot of money on the line in those, Sometimes you get a little bit of a competitive fatigue, and the Winter Cup is very often the odd man out if you need a break, as so many of these players very understandably do. To what you said earlier about win rates, yeah, again, both players with about a 90% win rate going into this, just over the Winter Cup, of course, although probably in general too. But not just that, both their SPY win rates just shy of 50. Their overall win rates are within a half percentage point of each other. They've been basically identical to this point.
Yeah, and I also am just now remembering the finals of the of SMC. Those players were also very nervous. So I'm that, of course, for a lot more money, and it's kind of also the build up over the course of a year to that tournament. So there's just so much interior motivation towards it that you can slip up a little bit more. Where Winter Cup is still one of the most prestigious tournaments we have, but there's not as long of a build up to it, and it's for a lot less money. But I'm already feeling, I'm having flashbacks to the SMC finals where there was a lot of nerves on display.
Yeah, as there very reasonably would be. I mean, it's a pretty nerve-wracking game to begin with. I always knew when I was playing, even in casual games back in the day, I could feel my heart through my chest every time I got in a mission win countdown. In exhibition games, right? Things with there are no stakes at all. It wasn't until I put an actual heart rate monitor on that I had a number to associate with that feeling. And sure enough, the heart rate would jump 40 to 50 beats per minute pretty much every time that mission win countdown scream came on. It happened to me when I was in the SCL6 finals as well. I'm sure it's happened to you in a few SCL events. Any particular ones come to mind?
No, I was actually, so I was already going off on the, you're talking about the heart rate monitor because I was going to mention that I remember you casting some games with the heart rate monitor on too and seeing it spike in those as well, which was a lot of fun.
I wasn't even playing them. Yeah. Yeah, that I think I did that with the actually it was you, Kletos, you and KCM. If you had beaten KCM, I was going to find my way into the SCL5 finals. So I
Whoops.
decided, whoops, I decided to cast those with a heart rate monitor on, and it spiked to 120, 130, 140 just near the end of your games when I had
Yeah.
nothing to do other than watch.
Yeah, that was not my day, as far from what I remember.
My memory is that it was 7-0.
Yeah,
Yes. However, I will maintain, even today, that if you very nearly won that first spy game, and I think if you had
Yeah.
done that, it might have gone a little differently. That early momentum was a big, big deal.
Yeah, well, there were a few other games where I'm like, where I pretty much had it down to who it was, and I just was like, not shooting for whatever reason. So, it's just one of them days, I guess.
Yep. I guess you weren't getting my screamed psychic messages the whole time.
No. Maybe
I
that
was
was,
trying my best.
maybe you were, you know, cursing me with this. I don't know.
Well, I was rooting for you at least. I had a banner and everything. It looks like the next game is
Oh.
ready. It is Redwoods, as Slappy mentioned, and boy, I think we've done about as much prep on this game as we can do. I'm ready to get right into it. It is Nebula Redwoods playing as Ponytail in 3, 2, 1, playing it. I refuse to call her Equestrian. It's just not fun to say.
Yeah, and I am very curious how you approach this one because this is also now becoming one of the more tech-heavy maps. People are still starting to learn out what positions mean with the trees and what they block, and what snipers like to hold things. Because like, unlike a lot of other maps where I think that snipers hold relatively similar positions, you definitely have favorites here on Redwoods. Just like
Yes.
people feel comfortable, and I think if you do enough research, you can really try to find just where they like to sit.
Yes, I contrast it with Modern in particular, where while everyone has their necessary rotations and their comfort spot, almost everybody has realized that about that 2/3 mark, that little golden ratio spot around the corner where the venue bends, that is the overpowered spot no matter what your style is, and you pretty much have to spend most of your default time there. Redwood's not so simple, definitely a little more idiosyncratic and a lot more movement necessary, and it really tests something very differently. It's easier to spot certain types of mistakes, movements, when your camera is still. It's when your camera moves that the emotions tend to blend together and that it gets easier to miss animation breaks, bugs, what have you. Nebula not going for the early flirt this time, scoping the party out. That game plan we mentioned on Courtyard might be a little different on Redwoods, or maybe just a little more, let's say, party circumstantial.
Yeah, we have a nod here, which is interesting. So right now, I completely agree. We are setting up, seeing who the suspects are. Redwood's also one of the better frame venues that we have, where there's just so much noise in the game that it's sometimes if you can just like throw something off, they'll just get nervous and think that they might have missed something. Um, uh, I'm interested to know if Martini thinks a bug happened. Oh, and then of
I
course
think
to the
so.
point of, yeah, I think he's a little bit nervous about that. Also, importantly for these players who have such pathing knowledge, the peripheral vision that's broken up by trees will really hurt their ability to low light as much as they want to. Also, just to note that and highlight that, very few lowlights for a Martini game, just in general, right now. At like what, 2 minutes in?
Yeah, Redwoods definitely counteracts Martini's strengths at least a little bit and was very focused in on the ambassador while Teal and the spy here were both next to them. And I have to say, Teal, with her idle animation, does have a bit of a sway in the ambassador's direction. It looks very similar to a quick standing bug. And there was a little sniper movement from the camera right when it happened, a little sort of, did I see what I think I saw? So, if Nebula is going all in on a kind of frame here, Teal a potential candidate for that.
Yeah, and we are really doing nothing in here. So I mean, we'll probably finish up this flirt. I mean, honestly, we have to hit the green to even get that first mission done. So it seems like we're all in on a frame at some point. We're actually not even going to finish up that flirt. We
Yeah.
are going
Once we time
to,
that. There we go.
yeah.
It is a white test, and we get the heck out of there very quickly, appropriately. And this will give us a chance to finish up the flirt, I was going to say, but as I said it, the seduction target leaves, and we are left alone indoors. Apparently, it's a beautiful night. Nobody wants anything to do with this here by the fire. We are forced now to leave. We could do another time ad. It'll be interesting to see if we go back to the same spot and do it again, or if we head to bar instead with Sari and Irish, and that's exactly what we do. There is no one else in front of us in line. Several bar highlights here now to pick from. Teal, unfortunately, has not done much, but there is a spot with the double agent there where you could go potentially put both yourself and Teal at risk if you wanted to contact.
Yeah, and also important. Ooh, but Smallman takes it as we're on our way in there, and I'm wondering. I don't think we're gonna notice it as much and really get a lot of suspicion towards. We're just gonna add time again. I think that's the right call. The beeps are gonna slow down in here, so I think we need to do this contact and send it off before we notice the slow beeps. Otherwise, it eliminates Teal.
Yeah, Smallman stays for about 20 seconds and then leaves very trolly and goes off and reads a book instead. We still have this drink. We still have this delegate. We could delegate to Teal. That could be the idea here. Maybe contact into delegate. No! Teal is going to go for the briefcase instead and is holding a book. And I don't know if we have anyone that we can get shot other than ourselves here. We're going to join with our seduction target. We're going to flirt and leave. It only gets us 90%. We have to add time by the fireplace. A little leisurely time ad in front of this gorgeous fireplace. We're going to do it with, 10 seconds left on the sniper's clock. Here it comes. It is a green, but this is going to get more and more noticeable. And you mentioned not that many lowlights. There are several more now, and inversely, we have just been highlit.
And our delegate timer expired. This is, and we're also in the range where OT is going to trigger no matter what. This is a very tricky game to win. Like I don't want to say it's like 100% over just because we're a very high suspect for the time ads, but I'm just trying to think of the conditions where a win could happen, where we could get away with it and not be the person ending the OT. We're just gonna do a bug here, but Martini's just gonna kind of know it's gonna happen, but no OT boot, so no shot.
And that is completely behind one of those tree trunks. Maybe you can infer it, but that is Redwoods. You can infer bugs more than you can see them, but it was not visible. We're going to go to statues now, and the camera's right on us. I think we're going to wait a few seconds before we take this shot, but as soon as it's possible to finish, and there's a white swap, and that's going to do it right in the ponytail where we've established this character clearly has a major artery, and they drop just like that with 3 missions, but it wasn't even as close as it sounds.
No, I am worried for Nebula. That is some of the most hesitant spy play I've ever seen out of Nebula. This is not like how Nebula normally plays, which is a bad sign versus Martini, especially as they if they were nervous, they're going to gain confidence as this works out, right? Like your opponent is adding time, doing a desperation swap at the end there. Obviously their plans aren't going right. That's going to make you feel like you can be more relaxed and just wait for them to come to you.
Yeah, certainly. And a little more concerning, too, given that we mentioned before the match that the plan was to be a little more aggressive. We saw it late, we didn't see it early, and this seems like a venue where it would be very useful, very functional to be aggressive early like that with all that cover, where those low lights are harder and harder to come by. But they did show up by the end of the game. That attrition still did kick in eventually for Martini. Now, with a chance to actually put a spy win on the board here, playing as Pearls. Or White Dress, I guess, rather, in 3, 2, 1, playing it. I have to be reminded that more than one character wears pearls.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually think. No, I guess I call her right because I need to at some point rework all of my names because all of my mnemonics are based on sound, and so white
Yes.
is actually all my mnemonics on white are kind of awful, and I don't actually like pearls, and I don't use pearls for the other one either. So, but that's neither here nor there.
Look at this. Lots of people at Books and Statues getting potential inspects in early on, including the Spy. We are not highlit for it. We do get a green flirt early on, 51%. Our seduction target is Smallman. As I like to say every time this happens, the benefits of having Smallman as your seduction target is that you can guarantee he will not be cast, will be a suspect, and a suspect you can manipulate for that matter. We're going to leave, walk over to this empty conversation, and presumably, maybe, go right back afterwards.
Yeah.
No.
We'll see. Yeah. There's so many opportunities here. The thing that we do have is, of course, a slow character. But on Redwoods, that important, especially since what it really does is it opens. If you're at books, you can get 2 inspects in on like one book animation, which is really just nice. I don't think they're going to be looking closely enough at that and low lighting for that at all. But it's just very helpful for some of the slow white animations that she's got.
Yeah, speed certainly. There's a fake contact, by the way. Speed matters less on Redwood, certainly compared to most venues. I would say rivaled only by Ballroom for mission density per square foot. So you can get a lot done with relatively little movement. We end up on the other side of our seduction target. Instead of going right back, as I suggested, we go get a drink, we go do a fake, and then we join with Smallman, who has not moved. There is the Purloin has just come off, by the way. The Delegate combining with the fake, and that was very well timed. There are and then we bug a standing bug right afterwards. Just under 100 seconds left, and we are getting very close here, but the laser is right on us. If we did not see this bug, Nebula did that rather, we are at least very suspicious of it. 1 flirt away now from getting to 3 missions, and we already have an inspect done.
Yeah, the problem here is I love this setup. The main way in which we get shot is that we're gonna play kind of predictably from here on out, likely. Oh, actually, no, that's not necessarily true because we could actually avoid the contact, setting up the fake that we could have had, which we weren't going to be positive that we actually looked like we were faking earlier because there's a decent amount of people in our conversation circle. So I'm very curious if we decide to, after this flirt, almost certainly, inspect finish or contact.
Does this take? It does take just in time. By the way, that's the kind of pathing Martini might shoot himself for, but he's just spying, not sniping. There's an innocuous watch check afterwards. 45 seconds left. 2 inspects would get it done. This is quite risky, but it is also, if they're not sure about that bug or the Purloin, if they're not on the short list, this is a tough shot for Nebula, but it might be one they take through sheer circumstance. Someone finishing inspects at the end of the game like this. If they're confident it's a fake, though, it does change everything. We are low lit! We are low lit! And we're walking away with the book. If we knew we were low lit, we have to inspect there, don't we? Except,
yes.
no.
Ambassador took the statue, and we had to switch over to the other statue. That was a sequencing problem. So we have to go back to the showcase to do the inspect, and here it's going to come. And it's still going to come off before 10 seconds, so there's not going to be overtime.
That is a massive decision. We clearly were not suspected for the bug. We were not suspected much for the Purloin. Otherwise, the timing of that inspect visit would have been suspicious in and of itself, and a little bit of BM from Martini with the broken book read animation at the very end, but it doesn't matter because we are not white. We are low lit, so we are gray, and we have won. Martini, with the first spy victory of the match, pulls ahead.
And that was just fabulous decision making. There was actually very little execution in that game. That was all decisions. The bug was just a conversation bug. The Purloin was just a combo with the fake. The inspects, it was all about like, okay, I'm gonna walk away, come back with this. I'm not gonna try to 3-cycle this book and maybe look extra suspicious. Like, it was just perfect decision making and no reliance on execution.
It's just good game planning and no big mistakes other than a couple of small pathing issues, which, hey, if you're going to do those, get them done on Redwood. Martini gets it done on Redwoods, and now Nebula is already behind 1. It's still only 3-1, though, and we've got a lot of time to come back. Pub, maybe not the best place to do that, but it is Pub 4 of 7, which does change things just a little bit. Nebula spying first as Boots. In 3, 2, 1, playing it. Or I guess Buns, right? More than one character has Boots, too.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, if you asked me off the top of my head though, to name the characters with boots, I would have been like, I don't know. I'd just be guessing. But actually, a lot of characters have boots now that I look about it.
A lot of them do.
Most characters have boots. This is all right. I'm starting to flip out now.
Plurality of characters have boots. That can't be right. I think you probably would have gotten Ponytail Alice. That one's obvious.
Right. Yeah. Just because of the okay, we are going to be picking up the fingerprintable briefcase. We're going to be returning that. I'm actually starting to be unused to 4 of 7 pub. I'm so used to the any 3 of 7 pub, where it's just this super aggressive spy shootout kind of situation. We're going to not actually sidle up to our seduction target here at the bar. That's probably a good decision if we're already high lit, because we're going to get paired pretty easily. And actually, General might have even left before we'd have a chance.
Very gutsy to go for an early fingerprint against someone like Martini with that reputation for noticing pathing issues. The question is that highlight for suspect pathing for the briefcase? It looked okay to me, or is it just for that fingerprint, for that early activity? Hard to know. I will say that there are a lot of highlights here that you can tell do not necessarily denote major suspicion. They're just early candidates for, I think, further looking.
Yeah, I'm very curious if we actually intended to go to this window or if we bailed on the path inside because no, this looks like it was just a white time ad or just a time ad spot. Oh, I think this is gonna get caught. Yep. And Martini was circling around and probably was gonna catch it anyways. But the fact that we left early, right as the watch check was ending, because we were hoping to be invisible behind the door hand, completely seals it. And Martini, another routine shot so far.
Yep, that for me is the early story here. Obviously, a loss counts as a loss no matter what, but Martini is not currently being tested. If there is going to be a stamina issue, you're going to have to put them to some tough decisions or even just draw the games out longer. The Redwood one, rather, it did go pretty long, but the other ones have not, and none of these have really been a particularly difficult decision, I think, for Martini, and that's the kind of thing that maybe adds up at the end of this, especially for someone who has, as I said, never made a major final before. You want to put them to the test like that, have them do something they haven't had to do very much. But so far, it has not worked out, and if Martini wins here, they could start running away with this. Playing as red dress on pub 4 of 7 in 3, 2, 1, playing it. It's still early, but this is a very big game for Nebula.
Yes, absolutely. And like this should like if we start dropping routine, we're actually going for a very early delegate. We're not going to be doing a straight cheese though, because we actually asked for the drink so quickly and Toby was also near us, so it was actually very fast. I wasn't sure if we're going to try something extremely cheesy like the take delegate, reject drink, walk away. But nothing too insane right here, which is good for Martini because we were immediately high lit. And if we try to do a delegate, we are probably just going to die.
Yeah, these are bar highlights. I could have sworn that they left. We're going to delegate, by the way, to Taft. Here we go. I could have sworn that they left a little early, that might have been a bit of a break, and that the idea was to kind of get lost in the chaos and maybe look as if you'd started with a drink, and maybe they've thought better of it since they have not gulped, they have merely sipped. Our seduction target is the one we've delegated to. We're going to finish our drink and go into statues while this is coming off. It's going to be a little close here, but we did it quick enough that I think it is going to make it. No, there's one more person in line, and that might be the difference. The inspects are coming off, and I don't know if this Purloin is going to get there in time. It's going to be very, very close. A green swap in the meantime. We're going to try to rush this whole game. If this Purloin takes, this game is going to be over one way or another very quick, and no, it does not. Just 4 or 5 seconds shy.
Yeah, and we are going to be trying to block this green. So right now, what we're doing here by going back and forth over the statue pad is delaying this green. Irish was coming in, and we actually blocked across. Really love this. I don't know how many times Nebula has seen this, but so the first pad over on the first window, I think is pretty normal. We're gonna do it again. We blocked Smallman from coming in for the green swap. I really want to know how on top of Nebula is on this possibility.
I mean, they weren't really on screen. That pillar was covering a lot. They were watching the ambassador out front, so that might have done it. A highlight is going to pick this up. That's very good. No, we get low lit for it right before we take the swap, though, but it is completely off screen. Here it comes. There's the swap. It's off screen, but it is a low light. They're going to have to remember it's been quite a while. We might have gotten away with this. One more green flirt to do it. We do not get the green. It's a white test, 83%, and this is going to give Nebula some time to piece together what has happened if and when they notice the statue.
Right, we need to get out of here and get back into this. Like, right now, this has gone perfectly. I actually forgot again that we weren't on 3 of 5. I was like, man, we were playing really aggressive. We could just get this flirt done. But, of course, we are on 47. This is, like, one of the only ways in which you could win this. We are timer flirting, though, so we're not trying to force anything too much. And there hasn't been a check on that statue since, at least.
And we're not dead yet. We're not dead yet, and that's the thing. If they were confident about this swap, if they knew what had happened, boy, it is narrowed down, though. Are they really going to shoot for a talk here in about 10 or 15 seconds? The moment of truth is coming up. This would be a potential backbreaker if Martini can score this win. It's been a very well-played game so far. Everything happened at once. The Purloin didn't quite take, but everything else has been fine. Seduction target leaves, and are we really going to follow them? Because there are so few people who aren't low-lit, so few people who are high-lit, that it's going to be very noticeable if we walk across pub here, but we're going to have to do it. Martini, moment of truth. Crossing the threshold, bumps into one twin, keeps going, is glowing. It is very obvious what they're doing if they're one of those true finalists. We're going to go around Smallman, we're going to go around again, and that is going to do it. That's going to save the game for Nebula.
Oh my god, it was a gorgeous game. Oh my god, but we had to that's so tragic. So and what's crazy here is of course the mind games that that Martini is trying to play into. We don't want to go right up next to our seduction target because we're worried about, chasing across the venue and potentially we're paired, right? We don't want to throw away this game. So we're trying to go on the far side of Smallman. Actually, I think the only other spot that we were going to have available to us would have been between Irish and Ponytail, but that was actually about to get taken by Plane Twin. So if we went over there, it was going to be this awkward bounce back over here. But instead, we tried to go for that spot. It's too small. We don't fit in, and we have the very obvious redirect back next to our seduction target. That is such a tragic ending.
Yes, and so this shows the advantage of failing gracefully. It seems obvious that Nebula, not exactly on top of the swap, was confident enough to narrow the party down so that a little pathing issue like that, which is not that bad in and of itself, but when you've only got a couple people left in the waning seconds of the game, it is that much more noticeable. If that seduction target stays put, I think we're talking Martini 5-1. Instead, Nebula stays alive, holds on to this kind of small trailing thing here, 4-2, I believe it is now, and we're headed into Tayen, where every game is anyone's game. That is a potentially tournament-saving shot from Nebula. Thanks to the seduction target for leaving, and now they're going to try to cash it in on the other side. As I said, Tayen, Kane, Nebula, 3, 2, 1. Playing it, we have a relatively normal Shoji setup here. We don't want all three on one side or the other. We want the statues mostly covered, and the main thing is, as long as the second shade is on the opposite side as the first one, you can work with it.
Yeah, and this is workable. It's not the best one, but it's not all on one side. And just again, we probably talked about this to death on other casts, but it's really, you just want the mix of Soji, not even for whatever it's covering, but for Toby. It's just so, if you constrict this, you can look at it right now, right? Where if Toby is in between those two Soji, you have so much more time where Toby is, you can't see the list. And again, that is so much more important than necessarily just being blocked at statues or something like that.
Yeah, that creates a huge difference, and it's just a lot more work from the sniper. You can't hang out on one side. You have to rotate a lot. If it's all on one side, you can sort of counteract that, go to the opposite side, try to get that far angle. As far as a checker will let you scroll, at least on Tayen. There was early talk about maybe doing a 360 thing and sort of giving up views entirely on the side and getting able to see the other side, but it has never happened that way. There's a contact, by the way, and we do have a standard 34% flirt in the meantime, so this is pretty straightforward. I mentioned earlier Redwoods almost as dense as Ballroom, missions per square foot. Tayen right up there with the two of them, though.
We do get highlight before this bug, by the way, so I don't know if that was for just a contact timing or flirt pairing or something, but very interesting here that we are going to be picking up a highlight before the bug, so that's sort of good news, bad news, is we were already in mind as Ambassador came up, but we are not actually suspected for this bug yet. That said, I am a little concerned for Nebula at this point.
I think you have to be. I mean, this is one of those things where bug is maybe just sort of assumed. The same way a lot of people will assume flirt if they don't specifically track it. It's very hard to be confident about bug on Tayen. If someone completes the 3 Softails and you're not confident they don't have the bug, then sometimes you just have to shoot anyway. And that might be the kind of thing we're at here. The question is Nebula going to lean into that? Are they going to do the inspects? Are they going to force one of those difficult shots that we mentioned before and figure even if I lose, it will put a little bit of a strain on Martini to have to make that choice without being confident about the bug, assuming they're not. There's that second flirt. It's going to get us 57% because our seduction target is all the way across from us. It is a small conversation circle, though, but it does mean that we're going to need a green test on that third flirt if we want to finish, and we only have a minute left. And with that in mind, Nebula looks like they might want to do a timeout here. They have a lot of cover in this corner. The reason to go to this corner as opposed to the main thing maybe could be to do timeout. No. Instead, we're just going to kill a few seconds, join next to our seduction target here. We're going to need this green test. Otherwise, we're going to be running around again.
Okay, so a few interesting little tech things that were happening. Oh, no green test on that, unfortunately. So one, when we were in that first conversation, the flirt was covering us so that we didn't look like we were reverse drive-bying the bug that was coming through. So we were being innocent for the second pass of the bug. Two, when we went over to the back corner where it looked like we might be doing a timeout, we requested a drink from Toby, try to keep a chain alive, I believe, but then the next person took a drink, killing that chain and killing our plans, I think, that we were
There it
trying
is.
to go for.
Yep, and there's a reject from Duke. This is our chance to get on a chain, and we do hit the green. Maybe we can leave, but how are we gonna? We gotta finish the deuce. We gotta finish the deuce. It doesn't matter. We bounce off someone, and Martini says, "You can't do that." And I was already a little suspicious. And there's a shot. I don't know if it was an easy shot exactly, but it also probably was not especially hard. And Nebula goes down again.
Yeah, it was always so funny right there. Oh, actually, I think he thought that was a bug. I think he just thought that was a crash bug.
We might have been shot for a bug after we had gotten the bug.
Yeah, because like I was saying, like the bouncing was bad, but it was like I don't know why Nebula, or sorry, why Martini would shoot at like 11 seconds before the mission count, but the bounce also happened to be off Ambassador behind Conversation Circle. You could just be crash bugging there and trying to win.
As a spy, though, for morale, it can be very disheartening to get shot before that hardtail even comes off. Purloin still pending there. And I think just not hitting that green test. What we're seeing from Nebula is that some of these game plans are perfectly reasonable, but when something disrupts them, things tend to unravel pretty quickly. That is the second time a seduction target has kind of interrupted what looked like a pretty straightforward game, and from that point forward, immediately the game fell apart. So we might have to think on our feet a little bit more. There was a lot of planning. We know a lot of planning went into this final. Nebula loves to prep. Player after my own heart, certainly. But the key thing about SpyParty is reacting in real time, too. You can only prep so much, and if you want to make Checker laugh, tell him your plans, tell the AI your plans, and this is the kind of thing that happens. So we might be looking at kind of the necessity of a mid-game kind of strategic shakeup from Nebula, given how this has gone so far. And but in the meantime, though, they cannot let Martini amass any more of a lead, and they're about to spy on Tayen, where a spy win is a lot easier than a lot of other places. In 3, 2, 1, playing it. This is, I think, Bling. Yes, it is Bling.
Your favorite, correct?
Yes, of the two, at least, if I have to pick. A little more personality.
A little more personality. You have cosplayed. Oh, we get.
I have.
I'm curious about that second lowlight on Danger, but anyways, there was just one lowlight off overall. It's just interesting also like the timing of Banana Bread. So on the venues where Banana Bread is more or less given because it's just so dominant, it's really, you can get into interesting mind games about what happens if you take an early BB versus a late BB because you just know it's going to happen, kind of like in Courtyard. There's just mind games about the timing of the BB. So I don't know how many times there's just an instant BB because usually in the time of chaos, it's not until a little bit later that people start sticking in conversation circles. So I don't know if this is actually going to come into play at all, but I think this might be a little bit strange just in the normal timing of Tayen.
It is definitely a little strange. I think the underrated potential benefit is the way it throws off people's kind of mental timers. They're used to expecting it at certain times. You have it as a possible shot prompt if you're trying to induce a shot, or if you want it to be your last mission. There's a sort of finality to it, this is the decision-making time kind of aspect to it on a lot of these venues. When you do it early, it's kind of easy to sort of forget it happened, in my experience. So the mere fact that it's strange has a way of potentially disrupting a sniper's rhythm, and the best snipers are all about that rhythm. So I like the choice here. We have a fingerprint early on as well. We did get a highlight for it, though. Nebula does seem to be all over this. And the party, it has to be said, not very active either.
Yeah, and something else about Tayen in particular for these players is that it's the only map where the pathing changes on the venue all the time, right? Because different Sojis is going to give different kind of pathings. You just have to know how to path around those depending on what you have. So, like for example, right now we have all the Soji on the right-hand side. So paths from the back of the venue to the front of the venue on the book side are relatively straightforward. You're not trying to bounce around them as much. But also there might be some little quirks there that I'm not even familiar with, depending on how the Soji are situated.
We have neglected to mention, by the way, that the shoji are all on one side, all over the statues. That is better than all over the bookcases, which is pretty much universally regarded as the worst configuration you can get. And yes, it is random. And yes, we do have stats on that. A lot of fun to look at the differences. They're marginal differences, but marginal differences are what win tournaments at this level. to put it mildly. There's 1 minute left. Contact is done. We still only have that initial seduce. We still only have that one fingerprint. It's almost like we know we're a suspect, but we are going to get a little something done here. Another seduce while we're sipping our drink. Those two things might be related. It is a green test, 85%. We're going to need one more. Question is, what are we going to finish with here? It is center statue. It allows us to get all 3 done, but the timing alone is going to make us, I don't know, if there was a second level of highlight, we'd probably be that right now. There's a swap right afterwards. It is a green test, and it doesn't even come off. And Nebula returns the favor, says, you're going to shoot me during a pending purloin. I'll shoot you for a pending swap.
Yeah, what was fascinating about that was the opportunity given by I guess it was just we were worried that we also had a bug in there or something because I don't see an animation break. But so the thing I was worried for before we went into that was trying to flirt at middle statues leaves you open to 3 cycling if you're going to try to get all the statues in there. But Martini sips before the flirt, so there's not going to be a break on the delay. Sips before the statue take up, flirts during the sip, able to grab the statues, gets 4 green tests in a row to get that swap off, which is the only way I think you can get that timing exactly right to be able to get all 3 inspects and a swap on a character who has really fast animations in the twin. But still it didn't really work out for us. But like again, one of the only ways you could actually get all of those things done at that statue without going over into the next animation.
The appropriately named Martini uses a drink to their benefit there to avoid exactly what you're talking about. As for the shot, as you say, and as I said in the previous game, you always have to kind of assume the bug on Tayen, so a center statue visit late is very suspicious. And on top of that, you already know they have 1 fingerprint, so if you are not confident that you didn't miss a second one in there or a difficult, that also might prompt a shot. Might have been a difficult shot, might have not. Either way, it is a win, and Nebula definitely needed that. They keep the margin to 2, and now we head into Modar. Nebula trying to score that first spy win on any 4 of 8 as green dress. In 3, 2, 1, playing it. Martini has had a lot of chances here to sort of extend this lead and put Nebula really far in the back foot, and it has not quite happened. Nebula might have stabilized the bleeding here, might have staunched it, and might only be 1 spy win away from equalizing this.
Yeah, and to note, Modern was once famously one of Martini's strongest maps, where I think he is easily the pioneer in a lot of pathing tech, but especially on Modern, where there is these odd little choke points around the couch and the windows that I think hopefully Nebula is pretty studied up on, and it's not going to replicate anything like that. But once was considered one of the strongest ones. We tried to rejoin our seduction target, but they were very cruel and took a path that looked like they were joining us at the CC, but instead we're going for the far side of the venue.
And that early green flirt is a pretty big deal. We do walk right by the ambassador. And by the way, I love high-level spy party play where you deliberately walk by the ambassador, trusting that the sniper opponent is good enough to know you didn't bug, and therefore you are less suspicious for it, whereas an intermediate sniper would just see you near the ambassador and have the exact opposite impression.
Curious if we're going to actually even go for this flirt. Okay, we are going to grab this flirt here. It's going to be cross conversation circle, but it puts us easily in 1 white flirt range. And so we'll be able to finish up there. I'm just curious where Nebula's flicking around. We're noticing, okay, we've clocked the fingerprint on the statue at the front side statues. We have every once in a while thrown a little glance towards Purloin. Ambassadors be going near us, but we're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, Martini tends to favor bar highlights when the venue calls for it. Nebula very aware of that, and you can see it can get out of control like this. This is kind of the downside of when you get good at getting low lights for behavioral things, for pathing things, for etiquette things. I think the downside is that you get very bad. You fall out of practice at managing large, unwieldy parties when the party doesn't go your way. So I think it's a very brittle kind of strategy. It'll usually help you. It'll certainly help you on net, but when the party does not cooperate, not only do you have a difficult party to contend with, but it's the kind of thing you don't have a lot of practice with. On the other hand, when you already suspect someone, you can see even a green microfilm from all the way across Modern.
And it's really a bummer because that. So what happened is, let's see, was that a non-interrupted leave that we got clocked for? Let's see. I want to see if we actually did get interrupted. No, we interrupted them. So Martini also possibly noticing that. Duke talked first. We interrupted them. We took an interrupt to leave. Got a highlight on us out over there, and that actually ended up being extremely relevant because I'm pretty sure this was a planned play of we're green on green, right? So green on green, a little bit harder theoretically to see a green test at the microfilm, but because we were highlight, much easier to catch that very slight tell. And so it really just came back to this moment where Martini able to watch so much and get that highlight off.
I mean, low key, the most important part here is that interrupt and that walk away. It's surprisingly visible for something like Modar. There is no occlusion between the two. There's not a lot going on at the time, and Martini is just on it, either because they're already staring or just because they happen to catch it. But either way, you don't have the kind of cover you would normally expect from a venue of this size with this many conversation circles. It's wide open. Martini catches it, and it makes the microfilm that much easier to catch. And Nebula still searching for that elusive spy win, and once again needs to win on Sniper to stop Martini from pulling away. This is not the position you want to be in, but they've been in this position several games already and have come through each time. But how long can that hold before Nebula has to answer? We're going to find out very soon. Martini playing as Ponytail in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
And I don't know if we are. So Martini, often a player who will mix in just really like strong bursts of aggression and then really, really delayed slow play. Okay, we also have to notice this insane bar. It's this mixed blessing, right? We are not going to be able to enjoy it. And there's more people going to the bar too. There might even be another person coming up soon. So I wonder if we're going to play off the expectation and just the concern that we just have so many people in conversations to be worried about sending this purloin coming up.
Yeah, we'll see if we can use it. Every time this happens, my headcanon is that the spy says something like, next round's on me, to create a distraction, and they all rush to the bar like this. Even though they do seem like a pretty well-to-do crowd that don't need their drinks purchased for them, nevertheless, 5 or 6 of them did crowd immediately, and poor Toby is left scrambling. Interestingly enough, we go back to red bookshelf with that red book that we took out in the commotion, so we do not feel like we can use... Oh, we go to red and then go to blue and dump it. This is very bold, but Nebula, completely motionless with that happening dead center screen and no reaction, which is either very good or very bad for Martini, and we're going to find out which very soon.
Yeah, this lack of motion has lingered a little too long for my liking for Martini.
Yes.
At first, I was like, okay, this is promising. Maybe we're watching General at Ambassador.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you are certainly right, and that was my inclination as well. A couple of seconds, maybe, but that long wait, not moving at all. Why are you not moving? Because you're pretty sure you already know who it is, and I mentioned that the ponytail has an artery in it. So does the front big toe, as it turns out. It is a foot shot. And Nebula does indeed keep that margin to 2, has been playing with fire after falling behind early. Now heading into what I believe is one of their favorite venues where they feel they are the strongest. It is Gallery, and it is going to be one of those twins again, and it is Bling again in 3, 2, 1, playing at Gallery. Such a surprisingly difficult venue for spies. You have to be very experienced, and this will help, though. I was just about to mention, the issue is usually time and moving around, but now we've got 45 extra seconds to play with.
Yeah, I no, we're dead. I was gonna say I think we're dead because that was a reflex, right? Where you're just like you're near the windows at the beginning, and you just want to do something, try to get advantage on there. But Ambassador was actually in a position where we didn't want to be zoomed in, and Toby wasn't really offering up anybody. So it was one of the instances where a lot of the times sniper reflexes on Gallery are zoom in on Ambassador, look at Toby, and just like panic guard for like 5 seconds, and then you can get a timeout off in the beginning part. But we are very much zoomed out and able to see the only person on the outside of the venue go to the window, leave a little early even, and that they can confirm through the time ad. So this game's just over.
I think so. Nebula actually makes a reasonable decision. They see a lot of early activity on Gallery, and they think, therefore, I'm covered for this time ad. But it was just a second or two too late, and the activity was not evenly distributed. It did not actually distract from what they were doing, even though there was a lot of general activity. It's like they were measuring movement itself rather than movement, location, or type, which, to be fair, split-second decision, that's the kind of thing you're going to have to do. But I think it was the rare, high-activity early Gallery game where the time ad was still very, very catchable, and Martini does seem to have caught it. We are done with the Seduce already, though. Maybe, if you're lucky here, Martini accumulates some other suspects, starts to question themselves. Maybe the highlight was just a little more reflexive, but I'm with you. I think we are a dead man walking in those saddle shoes.
Yeah, and hopefully Nebula has really wanted to get a Purloin playoff, and I think that's gonna actually be one of the tests. Yeah, here's just the shot. Like, why bother at this point? I think we could have just waited for the because that's the nice about green time ads is you can wait until it's really obvious, right? Like, don't overreact, don't shoot, just there's the chronostasis, all that kind of good stuff. But not a terrible idea there. It's a well-worn gambit on Gallery, but honestly, I think we just needed to look a little bit more at the situation with Ambassador and Toby before committing to that green temp, and also just that we were literally the only person on the outside of the venue, and we just stood out naturally because of it.
Yeah, and stop me if you've heard this one, but not only does Martini win their sniper game, but they did not have to work very hard for it. Again, whatever degree you want to think stamina might matter for players in general, for this player in general, in these longer sets, that'll manifest as the set goes on potentially, but not if they win quickly and easily. They have not been taxed yet, and I would think that someone who spends that much time kind of honing in, focusing on people, narrowing the party down with pathing into etiquette, that is very intensive stuff, and making them do that for longer would probably serve you well. The question is, are we going to shift gears? We'll find out soon enough, but here we are again, Nebula trying to keep the deficit to 2 with Martini spying on gallery as wheels in 3, 2, 1, playing it. Bold choice here, hitting these paths on gallery already a little bit tricky, and a little trickier with this particular hitbox.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, the type of aggression that Nebula has chosen so far. Ooh. That was a neat little bug. Like, I think we're gonna actually get away with that, and that's actually also one way to get Wheel's bug out of the way. We actually have to get out of this spot just in case it's the one of the bug spots, so we actually don't want to linger here too long because we might pick up credit if Ambassador comes by us. But Wheels is one of the characters with the best stop in motion animations because their hands don't come up really obviously. They don't look as obvious when they have stopped motion. So the fact that we did this bug, we stopped mid path, waited for Emma to catch up to us. We bug and then we keep moving. One of the hardest characters to catch that on.
You make a very good point. We suspected that maybe in that Tayen game, Nebula got away with the bug, or at least somewhat did, and then got suspected for running into the Ambassador anyway. So yeah, you don't want to be in that bug spot unless you have to now anymore. You don't want to be suspected for a bug you very well may have gotten away with. And we're going to proceed kind of normally here, I think, and we're just going to soft tile our way to victory, which means we're going to have to make progress on the flirt. We have 2 inspects done. The flirt is always the tricky part in gallery, even when you get away with that bug. You cannot assume it like you can on so many other venues. We're going to head right back here, but we're going to be on the other side of our seduction target. We're sticking out a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. Our seduction target is, of course, Smallman. There's the flirt. It's a green test, and that means any more flirt after this is going to get it done. The worst flirt you can get is 17%, and we only need 16. There are a lot of people out front right now, a lot of things vying for Nebula's attention, and if Martini did get away with that bug, we could be in big trouble.
Just noticing how many people in this conversation had drinks. Every single person before Smallman left and Boots came in was just full of drinks on this conversation. So there's going to be some interesting bouncing around that Toby was going to do, but then it changed a little bit where Boots is going to be here. Still a ton of drinks bouncing around. I actually have never really thought about this aspect at all with SpyParty, is if there's a lot of successful drink takes, the limited options for Toby in a given environment if they just sit there in conversations with drinks. Saturated, I guess is the way to put it.
I mean, sometimes Toby will just stand there on Tayen because he can't find a spot, and that frees the sniper up. There's no longer anything to look for there, and it's low-key important. On the other hand, if there has been a purloin, a lot of people have drinks. You can use that to your advantage as well, so it can go either way. We do finish with Seduce, by the way. We ignore the action test because why not? There's no point in risking the red. You never know. And that is done now, so it's going to be Inspect and perhaps Contact. I think if you're Martini, you've already got a lead, and you have to assume you got away with the bug, and if Nebula takes the shot, you just say good for them. You maybe don't do anything too crazy here.
Yeah, and so what's interesting about this, we're going to go in for this Inspect for sure.
Hold that thought 1 second, though. Hang on. The question is, answer quickly, do you go silent instead here with the swap?
I don't think so because, well, I mean, I guess we could because I was going to say Nebula's going to be watching us really closely for the green swap off of Disney, who also, by the way, went statue to statue pretty much. So I don't think we're going to go for a swap here and hold it in our hold it. I think we're actually going to try to wait a respectful amount. Man, Pencil is going statue to statue to statue. He's been at 3 in a row, and I think we're just going to go for this time or for these for this contact. It'd be great to get Disney in on this, but I don't think we're going to worry about it too much.
By the way, with our back to the sniper, we actually leave very quickly after putting the statue down so as not to tempt them with the shot. There's the contact. It's going to knock out Disney and a few others, several others, and we're taking lowlights. We're not shooting, which almost definitely means a Martini victory. A second spy win for Martini? Yes, and a fake, another little BM move like that book animation on Redwoods, and Martini gets that second spy win. Nebula has been playing with fire, like I said, for so many of these sniper games and finally gets burned.
Yeah, honestly, that bug pretty much sealed up because there's so much attention that you give towards bugs, and other than that bug, Ambassador wasn't giving a lot of bugs out on gallery for a gallery game, right? So sometimes snipers will feel more jittery if they feel like a lot of bugs has been handed out in the game, and then you might just get shot because their threshold for shooting is gonna be kind of lower. But I feel like Nebula felt like they had that game under control, and so there was no way that there was a shot going to come off there late.
I think you're right, and certainly there are games like that where the Ambassador is just high vulnerability throughout the game, and you have to recalibrate your threshold for shooting your suspicion. Oh boy, that is a really big one for Martini, and now Nebula absolutely on the back foot. And this is not the kind of venue where you want to be staging a comeback. It's going to be 3-7 Terrace, a lot of mind games potentially, but we're going to be playing as a bright pink cowboy first in a 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah.
These Softail variants, these 3 mission setups, they're very psychological. I mean, when we're casting Veranda, we say things like, I don't know, the bug was obscured by the conversation circle, but casting Terrace, it's like, well, his relationship with his father is very fraught.
Yes, there's a lot of like speculation about what is going to be what kind of bugs that there's going to be. I mean, it used to be the case. Players have gotten a little bit better about this. Is that bug wasn't free. It's just that like a good number of people would be able to get bugs, and sniper would just kind of throw up their hands, and that was the way you're going to win. Is either you catch that bug or not. It's progressed a little bit. I'm still not the biggest fan of Terrace because I still think it has it's kind of shoehorned into several different kinds of options. Agreed that it's very mind game-y in that you are kind of committing to a strategy rather than making out a plan on the fly, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't want that to be confused for a significant compliment. It's mind gamey in the way rock paper scissors is mind gamey. There's not always a lot of high level strategy going on there, but it does mean that it can be very tilting when you do in fact lose a sniper game on it too. But if the spy plays very, very well, they can get it to something approximating a coin flip. And that's if they play perfectly, because a good sniper is going to be pretty confident about things like that delegate coin flip thing that we're always talking about, which works in theory, but in practice, a good sniper can usually tell the difference. Speaking of, we have delegated to Mr. A, the man with the pencil mustache. Here he goes. He's requesting that drink, and the timer expires. We had no hope, even without someone in front of us in line.
Yeah, I think that was that might have just been mixing more people into bar. I think we might have just known that wasn't going to take, which is still, risky because if the sniper is also aware of that as just a thing that you want to be mixing more people in bar, and that you're just going to take those. The send might be there, but yeah, nothing too crazy in that. We are kind of in a little bit of a bind for time though if we want to set up that purloin, which I think we do because Ambassador's given nothing to anybody.
Yeah, we do not have a lot of progress here. And while the mission density is decent, you can rush around and get a few things done. The visibility, however, counteracts that pretty heavily. It is very obvious when you rush around Terrace.
And I feel like there's probably some sort of behavioralism in this of like the second time that someone visits a bar on Terrace because the first send is just always so bad. You take the delegate, being like, okay, I can delegate, but then you remember it's Terrace and you're like, oh god, this sucks. But then you run out of time and then you have to go back shamefully to pick up another one. I don't know how it works out in general, but I feel like there's probably a little tendency there.
This is just a little too late here. We're not going to be able to force any kind of overtime or anything. There's the white contact. Our seduction target's in another conversation, so we have to delegate and go flirt. That's going to knock another person out. We do not delegate. We just go to
We're
bar.
going to be the delegate, but we're not going to force OT with this. Nebula has to recognize
no,
this
doesn't work. We're trying to frame Buns, but there's nothing to force overtime, and Martini is just too disciplined. We take the purloin, and it doesn't matter. That 81% laughing in our face, and the flirt not getting done on Terrace, of all places, is what sabotages that game. And there's the angry shake from Nebula at the end, too. They just did not time that right.
Yeah, and a lot of shakes that we see on spy cams are luck. So like DA leaves, seduction target leaves.
Yes.
Something frustrating happens. Those were self frustration. That was Nebula's mad at themselves. They were 100% control of the problem in that moment.
Do I have this count right? It is indeed 9-4 Martini, and we're playing to 12. Martini at the cusp, just nearly the cusp of their first ever major tournament victory. This is already their first ever finals, and they have absolutely responded so far. Nebula, admittedly, has made it a little easier for them on the sniper side, and I think we've actually caught up here because of these some of these quick games.
Yeah, and as we noted before, I imagine these players are not shy about actually looking at replays. We've had a few few players in a row that kind of like getting into a tempo and they don't want to look at replays, right? More just because they just like want to stay in the zone and whatnot. Martini in particular, very calculated player. I think that Nebula is the one that actually needs that tempo a little bit, but hopefully is reviewing just slightly.
And we do have the next game now. It's going to be Martini as the spy. Already has pulled away. Nebula basically, I hate to use the phrase must win until you're literally on your tournament or match point, but we are fast approaching that point. A SPY victory here for Martini would all but guarantee their first major title, and they're playing as Teal on Terrace in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
Yeah, now the question is, because the other thing with Terrace and the other setups that have like very particular, well-worn gambits on them, is that often the first gambit that's done by the spy, the first spy, is not as available to the next person, and so
Yes.
there's kind of like another mind game. But in that last game, there was no gambit was taken, right? Like there was
Right.
not actually something that occurred. It was just a timeout. It doesn't really kind of count, and so Martini is going to feel very free, I think, in this game.
It's very interesting here. Nebula had a premonition that this would be a difficult match, was hesitant to play Martini in particular, as they mentioned. And the differences in style, Nebula heavily prepared for this. Martini specifically told me, tried hard not to prepare too much because they have a tendency to overthink. And so far, that underthinking might have been very good thinking, because the results are there, and the decision making has been very good. It's been very, I think, reactive, like we talked about earlier. And ultimately, prepping is good, but what was it? Planning is essential, but plans are not. Something like that. That's kind of SpyParty in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with that lack of planning, there has just been like these really good moments where Martini seizes on one little execution moment of inspiration and then sees the path after that, right? Sees
Yes.
the way to
Yes.
victory after that moment. So just kind of being available to that and then not trying to make anything too crazy happen. Honestly, Nebula has been the one that has engineered more wild plays rather than just kind of relatively like basic one-offs, and then you just have a good game plan from the rest of the way.
Right. There was no way in that gallery game that Martini planned to get that really good bug, but they kept open in the beginning of the game, saw the bug, took the bug, and from there formulated a plan, and it worked very well. There's a contact for Martini. There are several highlights now, only one low light. We've got a minute left. The flirt's about halfway done. This is a pretty standard Terrace game so far. If you're Martini, though, you just want to force Nebula into a lot of difficult shots over and over again, and if even one more gets through, you're good. There's a fingerprint. We're right next to the Ambassador. Nebula's zooming in, but doesn't have a very good view of this. This is going to make us very suspicious of the spy, whatever we get done, though. And we're going to join back with our seduction target here and try to finish this. It is a green test, but we did not stand close enough. It's 84%, and we are running out of ways to win this game.
Yeah, and hopefully, like, this is honestly to me a test of where Nebula's at as far as nerves. Nebula should know that he does not need to take a shot. He really doesn't.
That's an excellent point. If a shot comes off here, if a Civ shot comes off with, like, let's say, normal party luck, that will strongly indicate that Nebula is kind of done with this match, right? A little fried, a little frustrated. But so far, the patience seems to be there. And they did say that was going to be the game against Martini. Remember, in the beginning of the match, specifically wanted to force Martini to do missions, and do missions they have. But can they still hold here? We're right next to the Ambassador. They do take the bug. You cannot resist that opportunity on Terrace. You weren't going to win anyway, but the credit goes to Nebula. Absolutely all over it, and stays alive just a little bit longer.
And that was clever. Honestly, like, that was a hard to win game. That was probably one of the ways that you could do it, right? You go far enough into, like, we buried ourselves in salmon, but we had to be far enough so that the right hand was available to do the in conversation back-to-back bug. And so with the drink, it might have looked like it was unavailable, and we kind of nailed this position there. So I actually really like that, and the fact that Nebula was ready for it is just great. I mean, that was a game that they had to hold, and they did.
Back-to-back bugs like that are low-key underrated. It's not that they're not visible. I think, if anything, they're more visible than a lot of other bugs. It's that the sniper can just sort of forget they exist every now and then, right? You scan the party, you see who's vulnerable, and when you see this, like, for particular on Courtyard, right? When the Ambassador is at a window next to one of the conversations in the corner, occasionally you kind of just think they're not in a buggable position. Your brain just sort of does that for you, and you write them off for a second, and sometimes those back-to-back bugs happen during that second. I think that's a calculated risk from Martini. And again, when you have this kind of lead, you want to be taking these shots over and over and over again. You want to keep the pressure up. You want to force them into difficult shots where if they miss one thing, the game and the tournament with it are probably over. And if they keep catching it, fine, because all you need to do is snipe to victory anyway. And so far, your sniper has been on point.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I am the one thing I'm just curious about, although I don't know if it would work, is if we delegated to Salmon like, I just don't know if the tech works. If we delegate to Salmon and we do the back to back, if Salmon chooses to go between us and an Ambassador, if they cover, I don't know if there's enough room for that, but that would have been quite nice. I actually don't even know if the rules on you delegate what path they automatically choose if they choose from the position that they're at, the shortest path to there. There might be something there. There might be some cool tech there, but I like the plan.
Well, it might even be that once they approach bar, that's just a little bit of a distraction, and you take your eyes off the bug for just a fraction of a second. And that's the thing about the standing bugs, right? Standing bugs are more visible than walking bugs, but they happen quicker. If you miss them, if you look away for, if you know for a fact the sniper's going to look away for half a second, you're doing a standing bug every time. It's just that when they're looking, you can still get away with a walking bug sometimes. But standing bugs, I thought back in my playing days, were underutilized, certainly relative to the competitive meta, where by the time I think I left SCL, standing bugs were 80 to 90% of all bugs. I'm sorry, walking bugs were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Too high in my opinion.
And what we've seen actually less of, and by the way, it's on screen that we're waiting for the next game. What I've seen a lot less of is there was a lot of there was like a moment where the meta was Twitch in conversation bugs. And
Yes.
that moment has left, and I'm not sure exactly why. It could just be that people are watching in conversation, because you do animation break, and so it's like if you're not going to return back to your original animation as normal as you would. You maybe are just people have gotten better at guarding it. But there was a moment that was like the new hotness. Was normally when you would take it in conversation bug, you Twitch, do a back of the CC bug, and try to get that kind of thing off there. And then also to your point, the range is slightly longer on a standing bug, right? It kind of just like, if it happens, if you don't move, it connects. It's like a guarantee, barring a error bug code thing.
Yeah. It's more of an all or nothing thing. You're basically saying, if you're looking right here during this half second, you got me. And if you're not, you're done. And you have to infer it completely. We are going to get into this next one now. It's going to be library, any 5 of 8, a sniper's paradise, really, and that's not what you want when you're trying to come back. On the other hand, if you believe in momentum, if you believe in morale, there is nothing more potentially backbreaking, nothing better to get back in a game and put your opponent on the back foot and have them second-guessing themselves than scoring a spy win on Library 5-8. So this is a high-risk, high-reward kind of game for Nebula, and they are running out of those opportunities. It's still not must-win, but it's getting closer and closer. Nebula as Pencil Stash in 3, 2, 1, playing it.
And also, just beyond the fact that we need the literal numbers of games to swing back in our way, Nebula also just got to get a spy win at some point, just to get some sort of confidence back. Oh no, did we take a bad path? I guess it's not. I guess it's fine in time of chaos. There's a little bit of that awkward going into the middle of CC and then bouncing, reversing back around. But the fact that we're not highlight is good.
It's probably good. You probably got away with this one. And, by the way, very appropriate that someone named after alcohol would focus on people's ability to walk in a straight line. Nebula goes to center statue. The ambassador comes up next to us, and we inspect our own statue first. Oh, no, you don't do that. You always do a different statue first in case the ambassador does exactly this. They are going to put it back down, but now we can't get it done. Always, 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 kids, inspect a statue other than the one you're holding first.
Yeah, what was funny though is so Ambassador space was violated, right? And so he actually bounced out. So I actually think we had a chance to get all 3 in there. It is like normally you wouldn't be able to because of the timing of the Ambassador going in there, right? Like Ambassador coming in while you're starting your first inspect and taking a statue you haven't inspected. Yeah, there's no chance. But because there was the space meter went off, we had a possibility there, but now we're kind of just stuck.
Yep, I think we might have gotten away with that, but here's the thing. You're up against someone who focuses on etiquette. It's early on in a library game. Are we going to a second idle animation here? Did I misread that? I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yeah, we're behind like a pillar, so maybe we don't worry about it so much, and we saw a double agent coming towards us, but yeah.
Not sure. Might have lost track there a little bit, but regardless, yeah, I think the thing was maybe we get that third inspect in, but library games are long, and as I mentioned, you're just getting too many quick spy losses, so I kind of support the decision there. I think the thing was you just shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. There's no reason to inspect your held statue first, ever.
Right. And then additionally, one thing we do pick up, as long as we pay attention to it, we are going to do it. Okay, I thought we were going to do this way later.
And we're low.
We know the fingerprint is here, right? It's one of the easiest fingerprints to remember that you can. Is the frustrating fingerprint of the statue that got stolen from you. I don't think we have any inclination though that we are low lit though. I don't see any reason why we would think so.
I mean, the only thing we could infer, the low light seems to have come when we sort of ran into Sari there a couple of times. So there was an event that happened right before, but it would be a very difficult guess, a big lift for Nebula to assume that. On the other hand, that is how you get the most benefit out of those low lights, is you say, I don't know if I'm going to win this game anyway, unless I assume I'm low lit and act accordingly. I don't know, but regardless, Nebula is low lit and is bouncing all around here. There's 2 minutes left, and as long as they make steady progress, they should be okay. Speaking of, chance to finish the Seduce right here. They need a 36% on this. It's gonna have to be a green test, and it is. 2.5 missions done. By the way, Fingerprint, one of the best possible missions, I think, to finish while you're low lit, too. That's one of the few things that will not get you bumped back up to a highlight the way a Swap or a Purloin might.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the main thing also, like you're saying, is Nebula needs to not get tilted, right? Because he actually probably wins this game if he just does a normal finish. And the thing is, like, I'm worried about him having these little bounces and then him just worrying that the game's going to be over. The waiter's going to follow us back into this. We are not going to take the Pearl, and I think it's probably for the best for now. Wait for something a little bit better, but we do need to actually start getting within striking range of getting 5 missions.
It is, it's a tough call there, I think. I think probably the right call. We know, because of the low light in particular. Microfilm, another thing that's pretty good to do when you're low lit, but we only have a minute left. We are almost certainly going to have to add time unless we're going to dump this. There is a fingerprint. It's failed. It is a hard, difficult fingerprint. The fact that we're going for difficult fingerprints maybe suggests that we do not know we're low lit, which is a reasonable inference anyway. We are going to have to time out here, I think.
Yeah, either time, and we do seem to be pointed that way. I think we're gonna go to this back window. Yep, there it is. We're going to the time ad spot, doing the time ad thing, and we got to get out of here. We're gonna do 2, even though the first one was a white, and we're gonna book it. We got to book it now, and we seem to be getting away with it.
You say book it, but no microfilm forthcoming. They do get the heck out of there, though, and it looks like we probably got away with that time ad. That's a pretty easy thing to get away with when you're low lit on a venue with a lot of movement. We might need another time ad, though. I'm not really sure. It depends on what kind of progress we can make here. And boy, now the choice of missions is so big.
Yeah, it's funny is that we actually really didn't want to be at this window because after you get a green tam ad, you want to avoid windows like the plague, right? Just so you don't get accidental credit. But we wanted to go in that first conversation. Our spot got taken. We didn't want to take any chances on getting in the CC wrong. So we'll see how this is. Now, of course, those timeouts were absolutely necessary because I think we're getting some nods here. What do we like? I don't know, but Nebula might be starting to feel something out now.
Maybe they're getting suspicious and saying, hey, you know, I kind of bounced around a lot, and I'm not dead yet, and Martini would normally kill me, so it's possible I have been darkened. We'll find out. We're going to go back to a statue here, and oh boy, either there's a fingerprint or a swap or both. There's the only reason to go here. It's going to be a swap. I think they might suspect exactly what you said. That nod might have been, if I'm alive, I'm low-lit, and I'm going to go swap. Swap, on the other hand, can get you bumped back up, but we are not actually seen at statues, I don't think. We are walking away. We do bump into Duke. Will that get us bumped back up? No, it'll get Duke low-lit as well. And now the camera focuses on that statue, and you can feel Martini reevaluating things. They know something's gone wrong.
Yeah, and this okay, so we don't contact so quickly that the statue can't be seen, but we seem to just be taking normal highlights at this point. Oh no, the double agent leaves.
Oh no!
And Ambassador is not going to get forced out anytime soon. I do not think Seek is invading our space, and we really well maybe he's going to take a drink in a second here. Does he have anything in his hands? He does have a drink in his hand, so he's got to get forced out.
This is very bad. Are we going to have to purloin after all this? A white purloin could absolutely kill you here. It is a green, but it is kind of on screen. We're behind the pillar. There are only so many ways to finish with the double agent off looking at statues. There's a fake contact. A rash of lowlights come off. A purloin is pending. One more fingerprint would do it. The ambassador is not moving. Are we going to have a chance to contact? Salmon is walking across the venue. We could actually lose this. After all this, we're going to bug instead. We missed the bug! We missed the bug! We are going to time out, I think. We do. Absolute disaster. We could have crash bugged and gotten away with it with that low light. We could have won that game with the ugliest bug you ever did see, and instead, Nebula's best chance to get a spy win vanishes.
So just to state the obvious here, I cannot imagine a more tilting moment than that for us.
When they see the low light in particular, when they know if it's a fact.
Yeah, like this is. I'm setting this up in 2 different ways as either potentially the last possible moment that Nebula had to get back into this set, or setting up potentially one of the greatest mental reversals that you could do is whether or not you can come back from this. That is shattering, right? That is awful. I cannot overstate how painful that experience is. That's horrible. I'm rooting for Nebula at this point just because of what a gut shot that is. Winning on Library as that low light would have been such wind in our sails, and it was not only denied, it was denied in one of the most painful ways I could think of.
I mean, they just hit the bug too early, a quarter second later, and that takes. And as we can see from the replay, it's pretty visible. So you could have done any bug at that point, and you probably would have been fine. You did not have to be subtle about it. Or if the double agent just stays put, you almost certainly win that game. So it's a mix of, I don't want to say bad planning exactly. There were a couple of questionable decisions, but it was more bad luck than bad planning this time. So Nebula finally puts it all together. And here's the thing. When you're playing someone like Martini, where it seems almost unfair how they can whittle the party down with these sub-certain assumptions about their lowlights, your one consolation is that occasionally they're going to screw it up and they're going to hand you a spy win on a venue like this. And they finally give you that opportunity. They make the mistake and they get away with it anyway. If you're Martini, you're looking at this and thinking, I am playing with house money now. I am preordained to win this match.
Yeah, no. My heart goes out to Nebula. And yeah, there were so many things that just could have gone right. They just didn't. Ambassador, he really wanted Ambassador to leave and just to take that fingerprint. Nobody else was coming. Seek was blocking it perfectly. It's just tragic. Well, best of luck to Nebula at this point. So we are first. What does Martini need? Martini needs 2 sniper wins. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what else can you say other than the double agent left and the ambassador didn't? And if either of those things happens differently, you win that game. And it was the game I mentioned, the biggest momentum shifter possible if you think there is such a thing. If there's a way to psych your opponent out, it's to defeat a top sniper on Library with a low light like that. That would have been absolutely huge, but instead, Martini with a chance to just put him away. Playing as Seek on Library in 3, 2, 1, playing. It is not tournament point, but it is so close now. It is the penultimate tournament point, if my count is correct.
We do get it. Oh, we're dead. Okay. Well, good. Like this, at least. Like, I mean, we're probably gonna win this anyways. But
look at the sniper side.
Yeah, it's over.
We're just observing the statuary. We're just gonna play with our food a little bit. Not very long though. There's the bug. There's the shot. And at least you kind of wash the taste of that loss out of your mouth very, very quickly.
Yeah, and a little bit of like fun there. At least the double zoom in on, I don't even remember which statue it was, but so at least there's that. I mean, obviously, you would trade catching that early thing for any of the opportunities to win the last game, but good showing there, and at least we're through. Let's see. I'm going to take a pause here and then look at what we have left in the match, because as I noted before, the biggest problem is it's Martini's up 10-6. Martini can just win 2 of 5 sniping opportunities, and the remaining venues are not. I mean, thank God we have that veranda any 4 of 8, not any 5 of 8. Otherwise, that's one just marked off there. But
pretty much, yeah.
Tough.
I mean, you're Martini, you've got a 90% sniper win rate in this tournament, and now you only need 40% over your next 5 games, and that's if you blow every single spy game, and you've been playing spy extremely well. So there's just no more time left here. It would not be, it has to be said, the greatest comeback in any cup final. It would not even be the greatest comeback in the Winter Cup finals. But it would be very, very close, especially given the circumstances, if Nebula can even force overtime here, which is sudden death balcony, I will remind you, which nobody really wants, the competitors least of all, except for the casters, of course, because we love our drama. Will Nebula give us that drama? We'll find out very soon. Playing as Teal on High Rise, any 3 of 8. In 3, 2, 1, playing it. High Rise, any 3 of 8, legitimately tricky for the sniper sometimes here, especially if the spy is willing not to rule missions out like Swap if circumstances suggest it.
We have missed pad. It's not going to matter. We missed pad, so we don't get. I guess we just correctly leave, but we might be bunched up pretty high. Oh, yeah. I don't like this for us at all. I don't even know necessarily what it's for. If it's just for us trying to chase, or if it was for us not staying at pad long enough. Well, the non-pad.
Yeah, well, it could be, hey, there's too many people, at least one of them is off pad. It could be, yes, you left very quickly, or it could just be early flirt pairing. On the other hand, there were 2 early highlights, and it's not going to mean too much. Highlights are going to be pretty fluid. There's another highlight coming off, by the way, Martini. Quite a few people glowing already. I think one of the underrated parts of High Rise with all the missions turned on, or even most of the missions turned on, is that, we're used to thinking of Purloin being difficult to see on Ballroom or certain other venues. There are 5 or 6 standard Purloin spots here that with no extra occlusion, just standard positioning, you actually cannot see the fade. You don't get a good look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm assuming these players know it because the rotation on the tray is the big problem here because the center of the map's kind of an awkward spot. And so it keeps facing outwards. And so if you have a certain person in a certain spot, you can block it pretty well. And there's just a lot of people moving back in front of Toby. Just like the spot that Toby ends up being most of the game, there's lots of heads passing by.
Nebula running out of time here, trying to become the first ever person to win a 3rd cup title. Martini threatening to knock it right out of their hand before they can get a sip in. And speaking of, are we going to Purloin this time now? No, there's no reject chain started. That's usually what you're looking for here. You want to get at least one reject on in front of you if you're going to do it on High Rise.
Yeah, and so we are going to get this banana bread off. Luckily, no lowlights going to get taken that aren't already taken, so it's looking pretty good. We're looking at Purloin really closely, so if Nebula's waiting for a Purloin, I'm a little bit concerned for them because it seems like that is like where almost all of Martini's attention is going to. Not a lot of statue visitors this game, and there's going to be a low light on boots.
This has not been a very cooperative party. Everyone is taking drinks. There's no reject chains. Very few statue visitors, as you mentioned. I haven't seen that many fingerprints around. I think this is a really tough game for Nebula to win, and win they must.
Yeah, and Nebula is spinning around a little bit. I think they are a little bit nervous here. Okay, so we are going to flirt and maybe Purloin. There is going to be at least the green, and we're probably going to flirt here to have it be a countdown. Are we going to try to run away with this?
We need more rejects. There's a low light. Are they going to take it? No. Reject from the low light. Are we going to get bumped back up? We know these low lights are not usually hard low lights, and we're offering to another highlight. This is going to be hard to see from this angle, even if you're staring at it. Martini zooms in at the very end. Toby blocks it a little bit. It's going to be 50-50 for this shot. Are we going to take the right one? 50-50. And we do, and Nebula just cannot catch the break.
No, we were really using up all of our time there. At first, I thought, okay, we're probably just dead because Nebula, or sorry, if we're sure about the fade, then that knocks out white, and low lights were the other ones in the chain there. But we do wait pretty late in there, so it seems like it was closer than expected. That said, Nebula, I don't know about going for the Purloin in this instance because it feels like a less than 50-50 chance, honestly.
Given the number of lowlights, yeah, we were extremely lucky to get a reject and then to get a highlight to take it. That was very fortunate. That gave Nebula a fighting chance. But even then, the first rejector just going to be a little more inherently suspicious. And maybe that early highlight, maybe Martini really didn't like what they saw. Maybe it was just incidental. Maybe they flipped a coin in their head and figured, I can win one of the next 5 coin flips. And I'm going to take home this title. My first title ever in my first ever final in a major. This is it now. This is tournament point for Martini, and they have several to play with at least. And they're going to play Kane on High Rise 3-8 in 3, 2, 1, playing it. Tournament point for Martini.
Yeah, and of course,
immediate bug attempt.
Immediate bug attempt. We do miss, but so we're not any worse for wear at that point. But I mean, imagine if that had taken, that probably was just going to be the tournament right there. Yeah. We are actually giving up a lot of angle on Kane, so we don't really seem to be suspicious of him at all.
I was thinking the same thing. Even the bug attempt was basically obscured by that wall. We were not protecting Ambassador very much there, Nebula.
Yeah, no, because basically only Kane was gonna be the problem in there. So we were just giving it pretty much just a read on Kane not being spy. We're doing it again, by the way, but no bug on the way out. We possibly could have had it, but that would have been a risk. And Nebula's going to try his luck elsewhere. It looks like he's going to get inspects, and maybe we'll see some kind of crazy swap play.
Well, I mean, there's the seduction. It is a green test with General. We are going to inspect. I mean, this is when Toby and the Ambassador are both somewhat vulnerable out front, you can swap this far statue and get away with it surprisingly often. I think you need to be open to it if you really want to take advantage of all this. And there it is. It's the green test for Martini. And when you got this kind of lead, you play that much more confident. We are absolutely keeping the pressure on Nebula, and they're going to have to catch this swap in the least visible statue on High Rise. You have to rotate a very long way to check this out. And here they come. There's the seduction. The swap is bending. Are we even protecting? Are we protecting the statue? We're not even looking for it. We're not even looking for it. This could be it.
But there's no double agent. We really wanted to be able to flirt here and finish, but we are going to inspect instead. And if there's no rotation, that is it. That is the game. And that would actually be, okay, here's the rotation. Here's the rotation.
Is there any reaction? We shoot the wrong person, that's it! We do not catch the swap. Martini takes it home with room to spare, doubles up Nebula 12-6, and takes their first cup title in resounding fashion.
Yeah, incredible respect towards Nebula during this set. I potentially think that you were right on when you talked about Nebula possibly over-prepared relative to Martini staying kind of just relaxed and not overthinking too much and just being kind of responsive. Nebula still one of the probably top 3 players in the game, but not today. Unbelievable result from Martini.
I mean, made us look smart for once. We were talking about how the whole benefit of 3-8 is that there are things like swap, but if you decide I'm not going to microfilm, I'm not going to swap, you give a lot of that benefit back if your opponent can basically assume that. But that far statue, that swap, is a little underrated, and Martini knew it, and not protecting against it, not giving up the cost of that major rotation is ultimately what does it at the end. But if it hadn't been that, it would have been maybe one of 5 other things, because Martini had maybe won this match several games earlier. Their first ever final, their first ever cup. We talked about whether or not they were going to be nervous, but Martini was not shaken, but was stirring. Congratulations to Martini, and commiserations to Nebula, who, it has to be said, has 2 other cup titles waiting for them at home to make them feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Nebula, obviously a fantastic player. It would be more of a bummer if this was another player's like one of their first chances at a cup. This is the actual inevitability of 3 times in a row. Penguin pool final or winner wins the very next Winter Cup. So a lot riding on the Penguin pool finals now.
I mean, apparently it's like it's like being the top pick in the MLB draft. You know, you're in the minors, you're waiting, and this is kind of like the futures game. The Penguin pool is certainly. I'm going to give Martini the opportunity to hop in if they want, and we're going to see if we hear back from them very quickly. I imagine the competitors, of course, talking this on. Yep, Martini is going to be here briefly. We can ask a couple of quick questions, and we can, of course, congratulate them. Boy, I mean, I don't want to step on any of those questions because I'm sure you have a couple yourself for that matter.
Yeah, now I'm just looking back at some of the games. We have him joined. All right. Congratulations, Martini.
Thank you very much. That was honestly, I managed to stay pretty relaxed throughout the whole set, but for some reason I thought it was 2-11. So when I took that shot on high rise, I was like, did I just win? And then Nebula was like, no, it's 12. And then I got really nervous, like, oh my god, it's still going.
Right, and maybe you cursed it by thinking it was over, right? And then like you set yourself up, and then like, oh no, this is the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
We were talking about this. I think it might be the first major competitive event that required an even number to clinch, because it had an odd number of venues. It threw us for a loop, certainly, and it sounds like it did you too, but you had a lot of wins to spare at that point. At what point did you feel like you had it? Because you obviously came out to an early lead, and you never quite pulled away until 5 or 6 games later when you finally got that second SPY win. At what point did you start to maybe relax and think, okay, I can snipe my way to victory now?
Frankly, not very early at all. Because I got that first spy win, which is good, but obviously I have a hell of a lot of respect for Nebula. He can bring that back easily. I was a little I was pretty disappointed about that pub game where if Taft stayed for one more cycle, I maybe timer flirted out, or if I had a green test. But I think the second spy win definitely on gallery, I think it was definitely gave me a lot of relief. And I think once it came down to getting a couple of sniper win, I mean, but I say that, but even on library, like I very nearly lost, so I never really felt too comfortable.
That was going to be my next question. What was your reaction to that library game? Did you start to suspect something was wrong? Did you notice the swap? And what did you think when that screen came up and you realized how close it was?
Yeah, so I remembered someone was there at that statue because I saw the swap, and I knew it was somebody tall and that they were swapping for Duke, I think. And I thought it was General, but like it didn't seem like he was the spy. And I thought maybe I thought Alice was doing like a cheesy little time ad from that conversation, so I was watching her closely. But yeah, Disney was not on my radar at all, and if that bug takes, I have no idea if I'm able to take that shot.
Yeah, it would certainly be a tough shot to take. I don't know how much you watch your lowlights, but you did have quite a few of them on library too, so it might have just been a kind of a random chance at that point. And there was a fairly aggressive bug there at the end, which didn't prompt anything as well. But That we were thinking over here that was probably Nebula's last best chance to actually, get back in on the match.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially since that was the second timeout in a row for Nebula on Spy, which the first one was I think more of a Nebula sequencing issue, and Nebula was actually shaking screen a lot and kind of like recognizing that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the first timeout relative to the second one, because the first one I think you're probably feeling pretty comfortable. It's Terrace, and you can kind of guard it pretty well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think Tex was on my radar at all, but I did know that Nebula was playing slow a lot, and I did notice. I've watched him before. I've played him before, so I know that against top snipers, he likes to take things slow. He likes to use time ads and maybe bait out civ shots and take advantage of nerves in high stake matches. So I tried to remain even keeled and also accounting for possible AI control. So yeah, Tex wasn't on my radar, but I think everyone else I had pretty good control over.
So it's your first major final, and it results in your first major win as well. Congratulations. Any other thoughts before we wrap it up today?
Um. Oh, sorry, Slappy. You can go ahead if you want, but I guess for me personally, I didn't even think I was gonna make it out of these groups when I when the group draws happened. I'm sure you guys talked about it. Opie Wrights and Nebula. I think 3 of the 4 highest glycos were all in the same group, which is kind of crazy. But I was able to play against Miniorek, who had never played before, and I beat him. And I think even when I played Nebula in groups, it felt pretty even. Like I didn't feel like I was on my back foot or whatever, because I did beat him before in Megalodon Motel, so I knew I could do it. If I just get my breaks, if I get things to go my way, which a lot of times in SpyParty, especially when at this high of a level, there's a lot of luck involved, and if we play this set 5 times, he might win 3 of them, but today I got one of those wins.
Absolutely. All right. I think the last thing I just want to ask is, so this, I believe, automatically qualifies you for SMC. I don't know if that was your main intent going into this one, if that was the main goal that was going to be coming out of a Winter Cup win. But I'm just curious, as the first, well, I guess actually no, the previous winner and I think finalists are the technical first qualifiers, but the first guaranteed pass out of that tournament. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that I hopefully I'm like not too busy around that time of year that I can join. I know I qualified a couple of years ago, but I wasn't able to play. So if I am able to play, that would be awesome. I know there's going to be a lot of really skilled SpyParty players, and I'm really looking forward to it.
All right.
All
I
right.
think is that all we got?
I think that's everything. Thank you both. Thank you all.
Yeah, that was some good matches. I mean, good games. It clearly could have gone either way, but
And that's it's
I don't
like
know.
what
I'm just
Martini
on.
said, right? At this level, it really does. It really every
Yeah,
game feels like a battle and could go any way. Yeah.
yeah. And it was just sometimes it's not your day, and sometimes it is. Like if we
Well
played this
put.
again tomorrow, it could have gone completely the opposite way, right?
Very true.
All right. Anyhow, I think that is enough SpyParty for one day. And thank you, Warning Track and Slappy. It's always great hearing both of you cast.
Happy to do it. And really great cast coming up for you now, Martini. You're the only person listening to this right now that hasn't seen it. Well, I guess you and Nebula, but definitely catch it because it was a wild ride that I feel like maybe you've already forgotten because of how stressful the match was.
Yep. All
Yeah,
right.
and I just want to one last thing, congratulate Nebula on having a great run to the finals, and again it could have gone either way. I think he posted the stats, and maybe you guys talked about it, but I think we had like the 2 highest sniper win rates going into the finals, which is crazy, and I think he had a hell of a run.
Yep. All right, and that is it. Thank you all for watching. I don't know what what's going on now. If there's any more tournaments, I'm sure there will be. But anyhow, that's it for now. We'll see y'all next time.